Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar. Today's topic, ClearPath Forward Dorado Platforms and ClearPath OS 2200 Developer Studio. Our first presenter for you today is Brian Herklow, Product Manager for ClearPath Forward. And with that, Brian, the audience is yours.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What we'd like to talk to you about today is a high-level view of the ClearPath Forward strategy, and I'll talk about some of that, and then I'll turn it over to Bob LaFleur, who will talk to you about the ClearPath Forward architecture, its attributes, ClearPath Forward Dorado, and in particular, very proud to announce the new platforms. And then Sam Zertok will come on to talk to you about a very exciting entry in the ClearPath Software Series, the first deliverable in the OS 2200 space, OS 2200 Developer Studio, and he'll talk about what that now brings to you, what it can add to your environments, and it follows on with what I will be talking to you about in the upper level strategy. Bob will talk to you about the fabric solutions, and then we'll wrap it up from there. This is a very, very simple depiction of our ClearPath Forward strategy. I will direct your attention to the middle arrow where it says optimized infrastructure. Underneath that in parentheses it says Libra, Dorado, and CSS infrastructure. The focus of today is the Libra and Dorado platforms that we are now calling part of our optimized infrastructure strategy. Years ago, this would have been the only arrow on this slide. 2 years ago in 2016, late in 2016, we introduced the ClearPath Software Series. It is a follow-on. It is the next step to the strategy that we announced in 2005, where we told you that we were going to separate our architectures and move our software environments above the hardware. We were going to disconnect it from the hardware, allowing you much more agility in your deployment mechanisms than you ever had in the past. And we knew at the time that we were going to be heading to cloud environments in the future. So now the ClearPath Software Series at the bottom now underpins both what we call our optimized infrastructure strategy as well as where we are heading in the future, which is absolutely ClearPath Forward hybrid cloud environments. So in the ClearPath Software Series, we have already announced and released in the MCP space, MCP Bronze and MCP Silver, which are very low-end and low-end offerings. What Sam will be talking to you today about is the first deliverable in the OS 2200 space, which is OS 2200 Developer Studio. CSS in the middle arrow stands for ClearPath Software Series, and what we mean by CSS infrastructure is that we understand that clients may still want to buy hardware from us underpinning their software series deliverable products. So in the middle is our optimized infrastructure strategy, which are the Libra platforms, all of the new Dorado platforms that Bob will be talking to you about, as well as the CSS infrastructure, which is not the focus of today, although the OS 2200 Developer Studio offering is. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob to explain the new platform deliveries for you.
Thank you very much, Brian, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our attendees. We've got a number of things, as Brian said, we'll be talking to you about today, and I will start off by talking about the new ClearPath Forward Dorado platforms that will be released today. First of all, a big thank you, number one, for joining the seminar today, but mostly for many of you, for being ClearPath Forward clients. We can say without any hesitation that ClearPath Forward has been a very successful system for us and for our clients. We have had dozens of shipments around the world of all the major families within the ClearPath Forward Dorado platforms. shipments to all major lines of business, especially for popular for public sector and financial markets. I'm going to talk about the fabric-based resources that are an option with the ClearPath Forward systems, and we've seen from our experience in the last few years here that a significant number of clients are choosing to include the fabric-based resources with their ClearPath Forward systems. And today we're going to talk about a complete refresh of all the lines within the Dorado family, the low-end and mid-range 4000 series, the high-end 6000 series, and the premium high-end 8000 series. Again, we will be introducing new members of those products. So that's a full family replacement, of a full refresh of all of the major families for ClearPath Forward Dorado. And as part of that refresh, we'll talk about the new standard bearer for performance, the ClearPath Forward Dorado 8400 system, the highest performing Dorado systems ever. We'll talk about a new I/O subsystem, which again expands the performance of I/O for these systems. It has 3 to 5 times the performance of the previous architectures, the CMOS architectures, but it actually has a good 20 to 30% improvement over the prior ISMs that were used in the previous ClearPath Forward systems. We'll talk about some new networking capability in the latest storage interfaces that are available on these systems. And I'll be talking about a new ClearPath OS 2200 QProcessor implementation that's part of these new product families. These products have been successful because they continue to provide the inherent attributes that our clients have used and have come to rely on within the ClearPath systems. Scalability, availability, interoperability, manageability, the flexibility of multiple buying options, compatibility with the previous architectures, and accountability in the delivery of a complete solution from hardware through software. And I'll touch on pretty much all of these attributes as I go through the product introductions today. But there are a couple of them that I want to touch on first because they are very critical to our clients as well as very timely in what's happened here in the last few days. First piece we want to talk about is a hardware piece, and that's the enterprise class availability that is part of the Dorado ClearPath Forward systems. It starts with internal component resiliency, things like mirrored memory and RAID disk. We have multiple power supplies and redundant power inputs that are part of these overall system design. It goes on beyond the individual components to the high availability and redundant features that are part of the major processing elements for ClearPath Forward systems. And of the 7 systems that we'll be talking about today, 6 of them have been designed specifically with the highest levels of availability that we can manage. Things like multiple I/O subsystems, multiple processor designs with the high availability PMM that's now standard in most of our Dorado systems. And again, these are all standard and are part of an overall design that allows these systems to have reliability that's on par with any of the previous Dorado architectures. And in fact, some of our studies find that it's actually even a little bit better resiliency than what was available with our CMOS platforms. The other attribute that I want to talk about, because it's very timely, is security. We've just completed a security assessment. Actually, McAfee group, the Foundstone Services group from McAfee just completed a security assessment and produced a white paper And then I want to share with you a few results from this white paper. First of all, they found that the OS 2200 operating system and the Apex software that is used for administration in the OS 2200s were highly secure. And that's pretty much to be expected and things that our clients understand and anticipate from a ClearPath Forward Dorado system. And they go on to say that that happens, and it's evident that happens because the security design principles are part of the foundation and have been managed throughout the evolution of the OS 2200 platforms. Not something that has just been added on as a recent addition, but it's actually highly integrated and entrenched in every piece of the OS 2200 operating system. The final comment there is that it's evident to them that the close collaboration between the ClearPath OS 2200 operations in the field, the architects, and the development teams within Unisys provides a culture that can allow us to quickly respond and coordinate patches whenever we see a security risk that would be coming up as part of OS 2200 and ClearPath Forward systems. Now, you may have seen this slide before. This slide is a little bit, not, I won't say out of date, but the data was collected on the beginning of April. But we have been going through a rather rough week for a lot of clients around the world, not with their ClearPath systems, but with associated platforms, workstations, and servers that rely on the Windows environment. And we've been working closely with those clients to help them. And we have a couple instances where clients thought they might have systems that were affected, but we worked with them. And I'm proud to say that we have maintained our status that there's never been any data compromised on an OS 2200 or MCP system, so that the ClearPath Forward capabilities maintain the highest ratings for security within this national database. So that's something we're very proud of and something that we take very seriously in terms of maintaining that level of a secure infrastructure for our clients. Now, we're going to introduce a number of platforms today. These are all the latest generation of the Unisys Intel-based platforms for OS 2200, the ClearPath Forward Dorado systems, the Dorado 4400, 6400, and 8400 that are the next evolution of the ClearPath Forward systems that we've had in the past. And this 7th generation really is the apex of all the capabilities that we've been working on over a number of releases, and truly show the maturity that has come about from our Dorado Intel-based systems. So if you have not had an Intel-based ClearPath Forward system, please rest assured that all the features, all the capabilities, and those attributes that I talked about on the prior slide, those things have been carried forward into this new generation of Dorado platforms. The flagship of this new Dorado platform launch is the Dorado 8400. And again, it provides the new standard, the new highest level of possible OS 2200 application processing capability. The Dorado 8400 has a single thread performance of 680 MIPS. You can see that's a significant improvement over the Dorado 880, the CMOS architecture that we previously has been used by a number of clients. Additionally, it has an 8,000 MIPS single image performance. Again, more than 25% over a 32-way Dorado 800 system. And both the single thread performance and the single image performance is on a per partition basis. You'll see that there are 2 partitions within these new Dorado models. And if for a 2-partition Dorado 8400, then we can provide up to a total of 16,000 MIPS, all with the full memory, with the expanded I/O capacity that we'll talk about, all in a single cabinet. So there's a significant savings then for floor space, for cooling, for power. This new capability is an amazing amount of performance within a single cabinet. Now, further add that this is all part of the standard infrastructure from the initial shipment of the hardware. If you need to add performance, not ready for 8,000 MIPS on day one, we can provide you with a lesser performance key, as we have in the past, and there's no additional hardware required to add performance or to add memory. So everything you need is there in the processor memory module for this high level of performance. Now, along with the Dorado 8400, we are refreshing our Dorado 4000 series with the Dorado 4400 series. We have actually 2 elements of that. There is a smaller scale Dorado 4470. It's the only product in our family that has the standard availability. It's really configured to hit a specific price point for people with a very minimal level of OS 2200 processing requirements. And even though it provides a lower level of OS 2200 performance, it does maintain quite a number of the high performance features that we'll talk about in the other systems. Next on the list is the Dorado 4480 and 4490. Again, those are both the traditional fixed MIPS performance and the metered capability platforms for a mid-range performance. And this then is a high availability system, full redundancy in the hardware configuration. It also has additional I/O capacity. You can get additional ISMs as well as the system comes with a redundant dual ISM configuration as standard. The Dorado 6400 is the next level of performance between the 4400 and the 8400. This is a high-end processing performance, has a performance equal to a 16-way CMOS platforms, and it shares the same high I/O performance profile as the Dorado 8400. So again, a very capable, a robust processing environment for your OS 2200 applications. Now, one of our abilities that we like to talk about is scalability. And this chart shows the scalability there in red of our new Dorado platforms. Again, from the smallest Dorado 4470 configuration through the largest Dorado 8400 single partition, you can grow your business 800 times without having to worry about changing operating systems, changing database architectures, or even recompiling your application code. Scalability is one of the hallmarks that many of our customers rely on in terms of how their systems can keep up with their expanding business growth. Now, this is the overall Dorado architecture. I apologize for the boxes and the charts, but it's an important way to represent these systems. It's a distributed functional architecture based on multiple Unisys Intel platforms. We have the processor memory module, which actually runs the OS 2200 operating system and the applications. It has a special version of the firmware for the processing such that the code files are compatible with prior architectural designs. And then we have the ISM, another separate Unisys Intel platform that handles the I/O, and that On most systems, that's either a 2 or a 4 ISM design. And all of these major elements are connected with a high-speed fabric infrastructure, a high-speed network connection that ties these processes together to provide the support for the OS 2200 workloads. That's what's at the top part of this slide. Below the one level of fabric infrastructure, you'll see the optional fabric support resources for enterprise Windows, Linux, and additional workloads and solutions that can be provided by the client, by you, or specified by you, or provided by Unisys. In addition, we have our own partitioning software, which is available for the fabric infrastructure, so that you can run up to 30 logical processes within a single EPP, which is the Unisys platform, the Intel-based platform for running these expanded workloads. And it provides an overall design that's a common infrastructure, a complete data center, if you will, where everything is supported by Unisys as part of the ClearPath standard. That's a very powerful statement in what makes the fabric resources so attractive to many customers. I mentioned the processor memory module. Again, that's where the OS 2200 instruction set is executed through specialized firmware. It comes with a 16 gigaword of available OS 2200 memory, and that's a common amount of memory for all of the platforms. Even the entry-level Dorado 4470 has 16 gigawords of memory available for the OS 2200 applications. We have the PMM runs the network connections for the system, and we have a new 40 gigabit Ethernet network connection that's available. With most of our models, again, everything except for the entry-level Dorado 4470, we provide 2 PMMs, an active PMM and then a warm standby PMM, which is there in the configuration waiting to take over in the unlikely event that the first PMM is unavailable. It's part of an overall HA design where we try to eliminate, in most models, any sort of single point of failure and provide full redundancy. The HA PMM, again, resides in a warm state, and failover is under control of your operations staff, and it's comparable to the reserve IP that we've had with the prior designs. Now, part of the whole fabric infrastructure allows those PMMs, whether to automatically be connected with the IOs as in the Dorado partition. This chart shows a little bit of the high performance that we can get out of the networking that runs through the PMM. Again, showing some comparisons with the prior designs of the CMOS platforms. And the Dorado 8400 then allows up to a 4 times faster file transfer than on a prior CMOS designs. And it has the added advantage that it takes less OS 2200 resources to get that significant file transfer advantage. Overall, the I/O is improved in the new Dorado 4464 and 8400. The ISM, or the I/O storage module, is the Intel-based platform that provides that level of I/O capacity. We talked about the new 40 gigabit Ethernet NIC, allows the Dorado system to be part of a high-speed client network. The ISMs for these new systems is dedicated to I/O connectivity. There's no specialty partitions that are built into the ISM designs. And as such, we can now have an additional card count for the I/O subsystem on these new systems. For customers that require our XPC clustered support capability for OS 2200, there is a partition that will provide the XPCL connection from the Dorado system into the XPC cluster master, the XPCL4. We require 4 ISMs in order to provide all the resiliency and the redundancy for that type of connection. But it is another step in our evolution to moving everything to an Intel-based architecture. With the Dorado 4300 and 6300, we required a separate IOM type device in order to make the XPCL connection. Now, just as I showed for the network advantage, these latest generation of Dorado systems have an I/O advantage as well over the prior designs. This shows the comparison between the 4464 8400 with 4 ISMs. Again, the maximum performance for a single partition versus a Dorado 800 with 48 IOPs. Now, as I stated before, the single partition and even a dual partition I/O subsystem all resides in a single cabinet, where 48 IOPs in a Dorado 800 would require several cabinets just for the I/O subsystem. So you can see that we're providing a higher level of megabytes per second with a significant reduction in the floor space. And this is a single partition capability, not something that, again, we can double these performances for a system by having 2 partitions in a single cabinet. This actually shows the diagram with those 2 partitions. It's available in the Dorado 4480, 4490, the 6400 and 8400 models. Again, 2 partitions in these models, each with up to 4 ISMs, and the high availability PMM as a standard configuration. The fabric infrastructure connects not only the elements within a partition, but the 2 partitions together. So it's a secure communication fabric for process-to-process communications within OS 2200. And we have the MIPS reallocation capability. Even with the traditional fixed MIPS performance, you can move the MIPS around between these 2 partitions to balance your workload requirements through the day or the quarter, whatever your workload changes may require in terms of an overall reallocation of MIPS. As I mentioned, we have the OS 2200 XPC multi-host clustering capability. This is the capability to allow up to 6 Dorado host partitions to share a common storage, common database. It provides a very high performance capability. The chart there again shows that with 6 Dorado 8400s, you can now have up to 48,000 MIPS, all within a single OS 2200 processing complex, all sharing access to a common DMS database and file structures. Provides the ultimate and high availability. We have clients that use this environment and then can take out a system for total system maintenance or even upgrade a system from one platform to another while maintaining the rest of the systems in their overall OS 2200 application suite. This new XPC capability is available with the Dorado 4480, 4490, 6400, and 8400 systems. Is actually part of a Plateau 2 release that will be available late next month. So not part of the initial release here for all the Dorado platforms. So that's a quick overview of all the capabilities that will be released here within the next few weeks for the Dorado platforms. And at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Sam Chertok, who will talk about the OS 2200 Developer Studio. Take it away, Sam.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very new, exciting product in the world of OS 2200, the OS 2200 Developer Studio. So first, I want to congratulate ourselves, if you don't mind. This launch is the first time we have a software-only offering for OS 2200, and there's a lot more to come in the future in this area. So congratulations to us. So we all know how the needs of the IT departments and infrastructure. We need to be able to stay agile, to be flexible, and be flexible in a way that allows us to address the business needs. We also need to make sure we match our business priorities and ensure that we keep risks to a minimum. And of course, keeping our costs low is always a top priority. So we do have some big challenges that we need to address in the IT world. Now, the OS 2200 Software Edition delivers OS 2200 capabilities as a software-only offering that can be deployed on any hardware that meets the minimum specifications. The Developer Studio we're talking about today is a software-only environment that can be used for development, similar to our Software Developers Kit, the SDK workload, with some additional features that I'll mention in this presentation. This environment is also designed for teams and individuals and is licensed in a named user license model. I'll discuss that also in just a bit. So if you remember the previous slide with our IT needs, this is how OS 2200 Developer Studio addresses these needs and addresses many of them. First, it helps with keeping the IT organization and ClearPath development agile and flexible, offering many more choices with less restrictions. And of course, the cost issue, it helps reduce the cost and optimize the use of IT resources. So OS 2200 Developer Studio really helps add a new dimension for enterprise development. With the software-only deployment, you'll be able to separate the hardware from the software and increase your choice of where your hardware is sourced from and what kind of hardware you use. Of course, meeting the minimum specifications that Unisys provides. OS 2200 Developer Studio also has a flexible licensing model, the named user license model, and flexible deployment options that will give you a lot of choice as to how you use it and who gets to use this in your organization. This slide shows the overall ClearPath Software Series strategy. As you can see, our focus here is on enabling you to do more and keep up with the industry standards. We also want to make sure that you get the most out of your ClearPath investment and allow your IT staff to keep up with the newest technology. And some of the key benefits of the software series are listed on this slide. So the ClearPath Software Series, which Developer Studio is part of, allows you to stay productive and improve your productivity and accelerate your innovation, and also allows you to maximize your existing resources to get more out of them. So let's dive into some details about the OS 2200 Developer Studio. So this is the current system of how you usually get your software and hardware. When you think about Dorado systems today, it usually means a hardware and software integrated system with Unisys firmware that's integrated and assembled by Unisys in most cases. And Dorado systems are usually installed at your site by Unisys personnel. So now with the software series and with OS 2200 Developer Studio, you can be much more flexible, and we can offer you more flexibility using the software-only model. First, you can use your own hardware, as long as it meets the Unisys specifications, of course. You can use virtual environments like VMware, for example, if you want to. And you can also set up the systems without the need of Unisys supply chain assembly. So really providing you a much higher level of flexibility and a much easier way for you to do things. Now here's some more detail on the OS 2200 Developer Studio. So Developer Studio enables you to develop, maintain, and modernize ClearPath applications, and is available today on bare metal and VMware for the initial release. Well, it's not available today, it's available on June 30th actually, but it's in the process of being made available today. The product, this product will be ready to ship at the end of June and supports both a standard and enterprise license. And I want to make sure to mention that these licenses are, again, based on named users. So what is a named user in this context? So the named user licensing model is pretty common and common industry standard. We use this model in OS 2200 Software Edition and OS 2200 Developer Studio to allow you to use a more flexible and familiar licensing model that doesn't rely on hardware. Here's some more attributes of the software-only program. And I want to make sure that I mention that since this product is available on both the Unisys and third-party vendor-supplied hardware, performance might vary depending on what you do with your hardware and how you get it and how it performs. So make sure to take note of that. So now let's talk about the initial deployment options. As I mentioned, we do support bare metal and VMware options, and more deployment options will be coming in the future. Both VMware and bare metal are available on hardware that can be sourced from either Unisys or third-party vendors, and there's also support for soft tape. Soft tapes on this, and we also provide a soft tape manager that I'll get into shortly. Now for licensing models, so we offer two different licensing models. Both are named user based, which is different than how we usually license ClearPath products. These two types of licenses, the enterprise and the standard, are somewhat different, and you can see the differences on the slides, mainly focused on the size and the amount of users and the type of configuration that you want to have with this, and more software licensing models may be available in the future. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is the soft tape manager. So as part of this offering, we have a new product called the soft tape manager. This soft tape manager is used as a tape repository and can be used with multiple OS 2200 Developer Studio instances. Now in this slide, I'm going to show you a little bit about how we configure and set up OS 2200 Developer Studio. I want you to note that OS 2200 Developer Studio and the rest of the software series in the future will be based on the same CP levels as you use in Dorado platforms. So in this case, for OS 2200 Developer Studio, we're focused on CP 17. So if you're familiar with that, you won't have to manage multiple different versions and things like that. And again, it runs on client-supplied and managed platforms that meet the Unisys spec. This slide shows the bare metal deployment, and this slide shows how it's deployed on VMware. So in VMware, we have it's the same case as in the bare metal deployment. It's still the same CP level. We're just leveraging VMware environments that you manage. So if you already have VMware, you can use Developer Studio as a virtual machine, or you can get VMware and do that. Each of the above is in its own virtual machine. So very, very flexible, very easily configurable deployment. So that was OS 2200 Developer Studio at a glance. As I mentioned, it will be available on June 30th, and as we get closer to that date, we're going to have more information available as to the specifics and specifications of this offering. If you're interested in learning more, please contact your Unisys representative, or you can reach out to me directly, and we'll be able to provide you more information as it becomes available. Thank you for listening, and now I'd like to hand this back over to Bob.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Let me see if I can take control here. I can. So we'll move forward and go through some of the details for the new ClearPath Forward Dorado models, talk about the individual capabilities of each of the models and the performance levels that differentiate them. Again, the smallest system that we offer now with the ClearPath Forward platform introduction today is the ClearPath Forward Dorado 4470. It's a small-scale OS 2200 processing environment. Has a minimal hardware configuration. Again, it's a standard availability type configuration with a single PMM and a single ISM, designed to provide the smallest and most cost-effective solution for those customers that have only a little OS 2200 processing to do. It's a metered model. It only comes available as a metered system, so it's the best match between the revenue and expenses. And even though it's the small end of the OS 2200 family, it does provide some very high-end features like the new enterprise I/O subsystem, the high-performance ISM capability, the latest high-performance channel cards for 16 gigabit fiber channel cards, FICON connections, as well as this new 40 gigabit Ethernet card that I had mentioned. Now, although it's a smaller OS 2200 workload, it does have the full fabric capabilities. So it's a good mix for those clients that have a minimal OS 2200 requirement, but still want to maintain their own Windows or Linux type applications within a common infrastructure. Now, the example here shows a commercial, a small business type of implementation. We have clients in that environment, but there are also some fairly significant capabilities in terms of public safety for police departments, fire departments, as well as even defense systems here for the U.S. federal government. So even though the OS 2200 workload may be small, it's still OS 2200 and may be a very important business essential application to be supported. This chart shows the performance of the system. It's a metered system that has a ceiling of 300 MIPS, and because of the 300 MIPS ceiling, that really limits the single thread performance for the Dorado 4470. It can be contracted up to a 200 MIPS per month metering contract, so it's a very capable system, really, when you consider the size of the OS 2200 workload. As I said before, it comes with the 16 gigawatt of memory, a very high level of OS 2200 memory that's available, even with the smaller workload performance, and has the same I/O cards, the same NIC cards and storage connections that you can have with the bigger systems. The limiting factor for the 4470 is that you only have one ISM. So you have 6 of those cards, the storage connections available for the I/O connectivity. And the fabric infrastructure is an option on all these platforms. And as part of these platforms, you can have 12 of the EPPs, the enterprise partitionable platforms, that make up the Intel-based infrastructure for the Windows and Linux environments. The next family that we'll talk about is the Dorado 4480 and 4490 models. Again, this is a mid-range OS 2200 application processing. The 4480 and 4490 do include all the high availability configurations as the 6000 and the 8000 models, where they have the HAPMM as a standard feature, 2 ISMs as a standard configuration, and all the infrastructure, the fabric connections, the fabric switches, things that build the fabric for the OS 2200 capability, those are all redundant as well. The 4480 is the first model that we offer with the traditional fixed MIPS performance. Again, the 4470 is metered only. And as I said, you can have up to 4 ISMs per partition and XPCL capability with the 4480 and 4490. These models are also the first to introduce a dual partition capability. So you can have 2 OS 2200 partitions in the same cabinet with the 4480 and 4490. And we have a choice of workloads that are available for biz, for development, as well as our general purpose workloads. And the fabric, of course, remains a capability for all these systems. This chart shows the performance then of the 4480, 4490. Single thread performance of 450 MIPS, again limited by your overall fixed MIP or your ceiling on these systems. Traditional performance for the 4480 goes up to 2,000 MIPS per partition, where the metered run rate can be contracted up to 1,400 MIPS per partition, and that would then have a 2,000 MIPS ceiling. The 4480 and 4490 have 6 OS 2200 IPs, and as I said, include the HAPMM, 2 or 4 ISMs, and all the capabilities that are listed here. The Dorado 6000 series is a very capable, high performance, high-end OS 2200 application processing environment. It's very popular, utilized with a number of United States state governments, as well as different capabilities of government offices worldwide. Does provide all the high availability features that you would expect that are standard within the 6000 series for dual ISMs, HAPMM. Choice of business models, adding again to the flexibility of how these systems can be used, either with the traditional fixed MIPS performance or our metered capability in the pay-for-use business model. The I/O has the same performance as the Dorado 8000 systems, so that very high processing for I/O subsystems showed on the chart prior. The single thread performance for the 6400 has been bumped up a little bit from the 6300 capabilities. We now support 550 MIPS for the 6480 and 6490. Traditional performance per partition goes up to a 4,000 MIP fixed ceiling for the 6480, and for the metered contracted run rate up to 2,800 MIPS months per partition with a 4,000 MIP ceiling. And the Dorado 6480 and 6490 have 11 OS 2200 IPs. XPCL connections, dual partitions, all the fabric infrastructure components, again, are available with the Dorado 6480 and 6490. The high-end system for these new platforms is the Dorado 8480 and 8490. It's our premium high-end OS 2200 application processing capability, providing the very highest single thread, single partition, and single image performance of any Dorado system we've ever offered. And I've talked to a couple different OS 2200 clients that are seriously considering the move to an 8400 because they need that additional performance. Traditional business model with the fixed MIPS capability is available for customers that need that. Pay for use with metered workloads, providing additional flexibility in how MIPS can be shared between systems as well as partitions. All the I/O configurations and the high performance I/Os that we've discussed. Dual partition on the 8000 class is pretty much a standard. And we have multiple customers that are running dual partition Dorado 8300s and are very happy with the performance and reliability of the ClearPath Forward Intel-based systems for those workloads. Again, we talked about this. The single thread performance for the 8400 is 680 MIPS, a good 20% higher than, 15% higher. I want to overstate here, than the prior 8300 single thread performance. Performance goes up to 8,000 MIPS, which is head and shoulders above anything that we have released prior for the Dorado family. For the traditional model, that's a fixed level of 8,000 MIPS is the high end you can actually buy a license for. For the metered capability, you can contract up to 5,600 MIPS a month per partition with an 8,000 MIPS ceiling. And those levels of performance are provided through an 18 IP configuration. The high availability is utmost of importance for this class of machines. So all the redundancy and resiliency, the HAPMM, and the requirement to have either 2 or 4 ISMs. Again, we recommend the best practices that you implement ISMs in pairs, have each ISM maintaining a path to disk to a shared disk drive, and that way, if anything were to happen to a single ISM, you would have connectivity for the storage for the partition. And indeed, the OS 2200 processing would continue without an interruption. XPCL connectivity, very important for the 8000 class systems. We have a couple clients that are using XPCL today with the 8000 class. And as I said, dual partitions, fabric infrastructure, all those capabilities are available on the 8000 class system. So that pretty much completes the discussion of the Dorado family, the new platforms that we are introducing. I want to return to our diagram that shows the various components that are part of ClearPath Forward. And up until now, we've talked primarily about the things that are at the top end of this chart, the PMMs, the ISMs, and the fabric infrastructure that connects those OS 2200 processing capabilities. There is an additional level of capabilities that is part of the fabric infrastructure, and that is an option with the ClearPath Forward Dorado systems. We can add additional Intel-based resources to support a number of Windows and Linux workload capabilities. Those are covered under what we call an enterprise partitionable platform. We call them partitionable, although they are available not only with the Unisys partitioning capability, our own fabric-based SPAR partitioning, but are also available with a VMware or as a bare metal type of environment with any partitioning or software in case you have a single Windows environment that you need to support a large database, for example. The fabric-based infrastructure comes with its own fabric management platform that we call the FMP that allows you to deploy the partitions on these fabric resources, to change how those partitions are defined as your business needs change. And one other point I'll make is that there's really a separate fabric infrastructure that's utilized for the Windows and Linux workloads shown at the bottom of this chart. The overall performance of the fabric that supports the I/O and the main processing complex for the OS 2200 is not impacted by anything that happens down within the fabric infrastructure. Again, the fabric infrastructure is optional now with all the platforms. And with the initial release of ClearPath Forward, we included fabric components as part of our standard offering. Within the last 2 years, we've changed that to where it's now an option, but it continues to be a very popular option for many of our OS 2200 Dorado clients. We have multiple EPP types of platforms, 2-socket and 4-socket. The latest Broadwell architectures are available within the fabric. I talked about the workload partitioning, either Unisys SPAR partitioning, VMware, or bare metal, which is a non-partitioning option, I guess. Each of these EPPs have bidirectional access to the ClearPath OS 2200 resources. So it can be used with file transfers, applications, and any number of client specified or third-party solutions, or as I'll show you here in a minute, a number of Unisys solutions that are well suited to the fabric-based infrastructure. Fabric-based infrastructure on a Dorado system is part of the ClearPath Forward system, and support for these devices is provided as part of a ClearPath Forward system support. So many of the same attributes that you know for supporting your OS 2200 workloads are available for the fabric resources. With the introduction today of the new Dorado 4400, 6400, and 8400 models, we have a new QProcessor that's available exclusively for these systems. If you're not familiar with the QProcessor, it's a way of connecting the OS 2200 environment to the IBM MQ series for a secure message transfer to a number of remote hosts. Much like an email transfer, it's an application messaging capability where you can send a message and be confident that that message will be received. It's not as much a real-time implementation as possibly a delayed implementation. We have a number of clients that are using this with not only traditional hosts, but with specific devices. And there are a number of platforms that are available that will support the MQ series standard. But it's a great implementation. If you're thinking about an Internet of Things and you don't know what the status of any of those things will be when you need to have a communication with them, then the MQ series and the QProcessor implementation on OS 2200 is a good fit. It does have integration with TIP, HVTIP, and OpenDTP, so it's a good way of sharing applications within that environment with OS 2200. As part of the new QProcessor design, what we call QProcessor 4.0, it is a fabric-based implementation in that it does run within those fabric resources we were just talking about. It has specific requirements for type of EPP with its own disk and I/O card added to that EPP configuration. This QProcessor 4.0 is exclusive to these new platforms. So even though we've had QProcessor implementations on prior ClearPath Forward designs, this is new for these latest platforms. Part of QProcessor 4.0 includes a new web-based admin console with a streamlined administration and an updated format. You can see part of that format here on the screen. We also have improved performance and new clustering capabilities for multiple QProcessors, adding to the high availability of that part of your OS 2200 processing. It also integrates with a part of the fabric we call secure fabrics, where the QProcessor instances are then isolated from other fabric workloads and even other users of general purpose Windows or Linux type applications. QProcessor 4.0 does require the latest version of the fabric release, 4.0 fabric that's necessary for all these new platforms, as well as a new version, the WebSphere MQ for OS 2200 capability of version 8.0. Now, what else can you do with these fabric resources? Well, there's a world of things that you can utilize. Literally any client-specified workload, client-designed, off-the-shelf third-party workload that utilizes Microsoft Windows, SUSE Linux, or Red Hat Linux can be implemented to the fabric. But we think that the fabric is a great place to implement any number of Unisys products that require these operating environments. Enterprise output management is again integrated print services that's part of an overall OS 2200 print environment. That would be well suited for implementation on an EPP. Our metered systems on OS 2200 have a utilization reporting utility that captures the metered usage and reports it back to the billing offices at Unisys, and that can run within the fabric. Unisys Data Exchange is another product that would be well suited for an OS 2200 implementation. It allows data transformation between the Dorado databases and standard databases that would then run within the fabric, but the data exchange product would work well within that capability. Application integration services is another capability, although I believe AIS runs within the OS 2200, not within the fabric. It provides a .NET application interface to any number of Windows environments, such that you could run a Windows application and communicate between the OS 2200 and the Windows application via .NET. And of course, Sam just talked about OS 2200 Developer Studio. And OS 2200 Developer Studio can be implemented within the fabric on a VMware instance. We recommend VMware over bare metal for the Developer Studio because the op servers that are utilized by the main Dorado processing complex can't be utilized with Developer Studio. So if you utilize VMware, you can have a single EPP VMware instance that then can support the Developer Studio, the op servers, and the other pieces that are required. So those are Unisys solutions. Third-party solutions, the Java virtual machines can run within the fabric and then interface to the resource adapters within the OS 2200 to provide a Java interface for databases, viz, any number of capabilities. OS 2200 related tools such as SMA Opcon are certainly well suited to the fabric. Any number of OS 2200 related services. We have clients that are using the web capability for database servers or industry standard web servers to hook back in with the OS 2200. But really it's for anything that requires Windows or Linux implementations. And I've heard of clients that are using the fabric for everything from HR to payroll to file services, just as a common infrastructure then that can be utilized with the same standards as the client would use with the OS 2200. Now, one of the things that you may be looking for in this presentation that I haven't talked about is ePortal. And ePortal really is not part of the the overall Dorado infrastructure or even the fabric infrastructure at this point in time. The ePortal remains an important product for Unisys, but has gone a little bit different direction from the mainline OS 2200 based resources where we've had it in the past. ePortal Business and ePortal Enterprise are both still available, but they've now become more of an independent front end for the OS 2200 application processing. And that's especially important for the ePortal Enterprise, where it can actually be implemented to support multiple ClearPath Forward Dorado systems. So the ePortal Enterprise capability, and we have customers that are doing this, can then be utilized with multiple ClearPath Dorado and OS 2200 implementations. Again, with the ePortal Enterprise, we now support a multi-node approach where there is additional resiliency brought into the multiple nodes. And the implementation, the advantages of ePortal are all the same. Allows you to easily access your OS 2200 applications through a web browser or through a mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet, as well as to develop a new SOA-based integration services for the web. Release dates. Again, part of the Dorado 6400 and 8400 families. These systems require the OS 2200 release 17.0, which is available now. The Dorado 8400 is actually available now as well. We've had that available since the beginning of May here. We have several clients that are looking at those implementations and should have some shipments shortly. Announcement, we're doing that right now. All of the Unisys web pages and capabilities to read up and get more information about these new platforms are now part of unisys.com. I should mention as well that this presentation, both the recorded version of this presentation as well as a hard copy version of the slides I'm using here with some links that will be critical here in a minute, I'll show you, will be posted. The recording will be posted to YouTube, as well as the hard copy will be available on unisys.com in a few days. The Dorado 44s and 6400s, those will be available at the beginning of July. Again, end of June, beginning of July time frame. And any of these systems with the XPCL connectivity, what we call Plateau 2 for the Dorado 44, 64, and 8400, will also be available starting at the end of June. A few more bits of information here on how you can learn more about these systems and just many capabilities for the OS 2200 and Dorado families. We have a number of YouTube videos. Again, the YouTube videos not only as part of this release, but also for the OS 2200 release 17.0. The new version of unisys.com with the latest Dorado platform products that we're introducing today will be available, or is available now. There will be a new ClearPath Forward connection newsletter coming out that will further provide information on these platforms. Again, when you see this, the hard copy of this presentation, these links will be live so that you can click on them to learn more about these features. Additional pieces of material that you can see, again, we have new information on our ClearPath Forward services portfolio, all the things that you need to take your applications to the latest standards within a services engagement, as well as implementation services for the platforms and any of the capabilities that we've talked about today. A couple ebooks that are there, high-level strategic documents on services, as well as information on the administration. and videos, as we've talked about, that are all part of the ClearPath Forward complex and the total information that we provide. If you're not following us in social media, we certainly invite you to do so through Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, as well as specialized groups within LinkedIn and other social media sites that we maintain here. So again, when you get this presentation, you can follow up on these links. So that pretty much concludes my section of the presentation. At this point, I guess, Matt, we can open the phone up and talk about if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Bob. That does bring us to the Q&A portion of the presentation. Again, if you have questions for our presenters, you can ask those using the question box located on the lower right-hand side of your control panel. As always, some of the first questions that have come across, Bob, and you just covered some of that there, was where the recordings could be found. We also had a question wondering if the McAfee white paper was going to be made available.
Yes, we'll have the McAfee white paper. I haven't looked to see if that's been posted yet to unisys.com, but it will be within a matter of days.
Excellent. And
if anybody needs that ahead of time, we can certainly send it. Just please send us your name, and we'll get it to you right away, rather than waiting for posting it.
And then, again, the recordings were going to be made on the ClearPath YouTube channel. On where was that located at again, Bob? I just had another one come across.
The ClearPath OS 2200 webinar section. The playlist for that section is in YouTube.
Excellent. The next question I have is, will there be a software offering of the QProcessor to use with 2200 Developer Studio?
That's part of our overall plans. It's not something that I can specify at this time as to when it will be available, but it is something we certainly plan on doing.
Okay. Then that looks like all the questions that we have had come across, and we are just a little bit over our time that we had scheduled for today, so we'll let everybody get back. I guess I'll turn it back to you, Bob, for any closing statements that you have for our audience.
Well, no, the only closing statements I will say is, as the slide says here, thank you all very much. We appreciate being partners with our clients, working through the requirements that you have for new systems and new capabilities that are part of the ClearPath Forward Dorado and ClearPath OS 2200 capabilities. So thank you for your partnership and attending today.
And thank you, Bob, Brian, and Sam, for another wonderful presentation. That does conclude today's event. And again, I would like to thank all of you for attending, and have a great day.